Hello, and welcome to the 11th episode of Analyzing Fathers, the purpose of which is to take a deep dive into the life and parenting of fathers, both real and fictional, to see what, if anything, we can learn from them as future and current fathers. Today, we'll be taking a look at the parenting of Fire Lord Ozai from the greatest cartoon ever, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Ozai was the ruler of the Fire Nation near the end of the 100-Year War, a major global conflict that saw the genocide of the air nomads and the Fire Nation rise to a world-dominating position. Ozai was the second son of Fire Lord Azula and ATLA, the younger brother of Iroh, uncle to Lu Ten, husband to Ursa, the father of Prince Zuko and Princess Azula, and the grandfather to Azumi. In his prime, Ozai was a firebending master and said to be the most powerful firebender in the world. It is said by Iroh that his brother Ozai had a difficult temperament from the moment he could crawl. Ozai would become increasingly stubborn, impatient, and ambitious as he grew up. This, coupled with the brother's highly competitive nature, led to a strained relationship where the two fought regularly, such as brothers often do. Ozai may have held some jealousy towards his brother, as it is said that Azula, their father, favored Iroh over him. Whether jealous or not, Ozai's ruthlessness and ambition served him well in school. It is during this time that Iroh would learn a truth about his brother. Many dismissed Ozai's aggressive behavior as tantrums of youth. Ozai was young, powerful, and protected. It seemed natural that he would act this way. Iroh, however, realized that Ozai's temperament came from a true lack of empathy and brutal ambition. Nothing was off limits when it came to Ozai's goals and desires. Because of this, Iroh distanced himself from his brother. While Ozai was a powerful bender, he lacked the military accolades of his grandfather, father, and brother. He was never a general at any point in his younger days. Perhaps this led to some bitter feelings or jealousy towards Iroh. In an attempt to gain some accomplishment, Ozai made attempts to find the Avatar through search parties, but he failed like everyone else. Ozai's only notable accomplishment was being the leader of the Fire Nation, and that alone placed him above his brother in his eyes. Aside from that, Ozai was well traveled, having spent much time outside the palace and was trained in martial arts. When it came time to marry, Azula and Ozai sought out the ancestor of Avatar Roku, the previous Avatar who was from the Fire Nation. They hoped such a marriage would create an even stronger bloodline, and in some ways one could argue that it did, as both Ozai's children were powerful firebenders in their own right. Azula and Ozai would locate Ursa, who was the granddaughter of Avatar Roku, and the two would wed. Ozai was controlling within his marriage from the start. He told his wife she must cut ties with her past life, including family, friends, and unapproved traditions, so she could fully dedicate herself to her new duties and royal family. Ozai even went as far as to tell his wife that she now belonged to him. Despite this, the two would have two children, Zuko and Azula. Ozai's cruelty showed itself quickly as he felt Zuko lacked the spark in his eyes, meaning that he may grow up as a non-bender. Ozai considered this too shameful and decided to throw his infant son from the palace walls, Heihachi Mishima style. It took the combined efforts of Ursa and the Fire Sages to convince Ozai to let Zuko live. Ozai said that when his children were young, he attempted to be a good father, and there was some evidence to support the claim. For example, while vacationing on Ember Island, Zuko nearly drowned. Ozai risked his life against the tide to save Zuko. His children also agreed with him as well. All of that changed when Azula began to firebend at a young age. From then on, Ozai began to favor his daughter, as she clearly was a prodigy. Ozai would continue to raise his daughter, making sure her cruelty and perfectionism grew alongside her natural talents. This favoritism obviously grew his relationship with Azula, but deteriorated his relationship with his son and wife. To make matters worse, Ozai discovered that Ursa still longed for her past life and potentially an ex-boyfriend. He even paid an assassin to kill the man. Ozai then confronted his wife about the letters to her ex and even accused Zuko of being the result of infidelity due to what Ursa had written in her letters to her ex. Ursa confirmed that she tried to lie about Zuko's parentage because she didn't want Zuko to turn out like Ozai. Ozai, being the cruel, vindictive man he was, told his wife that he knew Zuko was his son, as he had placed spies on her years ago. He told her he would treat Zuko like a treacherous dog, even though the boy had done nothing at all. Ozai did all this just to take pleasure in his wife's reaction. Ozai's word proved to be true, as numerous times he spoke to and treated Zuko negatively. One of the worst occurred when Zuko spoke out in defense of a firebending teacher that Azula had been chastised by. Ozai had threatened to essentially banish the teacher, and Zuko defended him, going against his sister and father. Ozai snapped, shaming his son because Azula was a better firebender. Ozai told Zuko that he was lucky to be born and revealed that his mother and Fire Sages had saved Zuko from being tossed off the palace walls. This act surely damaged Zuko and his relationship with his father even more. As previously stated, Ozai had no actual experience on the battlefield during the 100-Year War. His brother Iroh had, however, gained great renown and was placed in charge of the siege of Ba Sing Se, the Earth Kingdom capital. The siege would last 600 days, but Iroh's only son was killed in a battle, causing Iroh to abandon the siege due to grief. Ozai saw this as weakness and went to his father Azula, requesting that Iroh's birthright as future Fire Lord be revoked and given to Ozai, since Iroh no longer had an heir and the line of Fire Lords would end with him. Azula became furious at such a betrayal and punished Ozai by ordering him to kill his son Zuko to understand Iroh's pain. Ozai decided to do the deed while his son slept to avoid causing him pain. A small mercy, I suppose. However, Ursa learned of this and begged for her son's life, but Ozai could not oblige. To do so would be treason against the Fire Lord. So his wife devised a plan. She would give Ozai a traceless poison so that he could become Fire Lord and spare Zuko. Ozai agreed only if his wife left the kingdom and their children. To save her son, Ursa agreed, and Ozai used his concoction to kill his own father. After committing patricide, the Fire Sages named Ozai the new Fire Lord, claiming it was Azulan's final wish. Ozai had successfully manipulated and maneuvered his way past his elder brother to take the throne. Iroh was too broken by the loss of his son, and after had a journey of personal growth, so he would never challenge his brother for his birthright. Ozai would rule the Fire Nation uncontested. The problem was that Ozai hadn't been raised to be a leader like Iroh had. As a result of this, Ozai proved to be a worse autocrat than his father, yet still expected complete loyalty and subordination even when wrong. Ozai mostly continued the policies of his father, especially the quest to expand the Fire Nation's domination of the world. Ozai was quick to eliminate any advisor, general, and civilian that questioned him. Exile, imprisonment, and execution were all on the table. Even the children of his opposition weren't safe from the Fire Lord's wrath. Unlike his father, however, Ozai was open to work with outlaws and political dissidents if it would help him reach his goals. For example, the Fire Nation Navy had been being harassed for years by pirates. Ozai secretly negotiated payments to them to stop the attacks. Many would have seen this as weak or foolish, but Ozai's maneuvering freed up the Navy, allowing the Fire Nation to control the world's oceans. Ozai also invested into the industrial and technological advancements of the Fire Nation. Ozai was cruel, but none suffered more than his son and heir Zuko. By this point, it was well known that Zuko was the least favored of the Fire Lord's children. During a meeting in the war room, a general proposed an audacious plan that would sacrifice troops. Zuko spoke out against the plan and angered his father, Ozai, who could care less about the loss of troops if it secured victory. Ozai demanded Zuko fight in an Agni Kai, a duel between firebenders until someone is burned. Only it wouldn't be against the general. When the young prince arrived, it was his father he was set to face. Zuko begged for forgiveness and refused to fight. So as a punishment for his disobedience and perceived cowardice, Ozai badly burned his son's face, scarring him forever, then banished him until he was able to find the Avatar who had been missing for 100 years. In Ozai's eyes, this was the perfect way to remove Zuko from the picture. However, the Avatar would appear, sending Ozai into panic. The Avatar was the only person capable of defeating the Fire Nation. Fearing loss of power, Ozai ramped up his pursuit of the Avatar, not trusting his son to complete the task. He promoted generals to admirals and gave out emergency power. One of the generals Ozai sent was the same one Zuko had spoken against, General Zhao. The two parties clashed, but Zhao's plan was too much for Iroh, and he betrayed the Fire Nation by attacking General Zhao, which led to his death. When Ozai learned of this, he appointed his daughter to capture Zuko and Iroh so that they can be tried for treason. The Fire Nation focused its efforts on the conquering of Ba Sing Se, and it was there that Ozai's children would both shine, each having a hand in conquering the Earth Kingdom capital and eliminating the Avatar. Ozai showed and expressed pride in his son for the first and only time because of this. Ozai finally allowed his son to return home and resume his place amongst the royal family and generals. During a meeting about the conquest of Ba Sing Se, Zuko revealed to his father that the Earth Kingdom would never cease fighting, regardless if their capital city had been lost. Hearing this, Ozai came up with a plan. During a comet's passing, Firebender's strength was amplified. A comet was returning, and Ozai declared that on the day, the Fire Nation would use the extra power to eradicate the Earthbenders, how his ancestors had done the Airbenders 100 years before. It was to be Ozai's crowning achievement, what would have him forever remembered like Fire Lord Sozin before him. After setting the genocide in motion, there was another event to be prepared for, the Day of the Black Sun. Firebender's abilities were amplified by the sun or comets, however, they are completely ineffective during an eclipse, when the sun is blacked out. Knowing this, the Avatar and his companions planned to infiltrate the Fire Nation and eliminate the Fire Lord while the eclipse took place. However, Ozai proved to be a step ahead. On the day of the invasion, Ozai evacuated the capital city and hid in a heavily guarded bunker. Zuko demanded to speak with his father, and Ozai acquiesced. The two would have a powerful conversation that would shape Zuko from then on. Zuko revealed that the Avatar was alive and that Azula had lied to their father. Ozai attempted to attack, but Zuko was armed with swords, forcing Ozai to listen to his son for the first time. Zuko explained that he was done trying to earn his father's love and that Ozai was unworthy of his son's love after all the abuse, banishment, and scarring him. Ozai attempted to claim it was lessons to teach discipline and respect, but Zuko told him it was cruel and wrong. Having explored the world beyond the Fire Nation, Zuko realized his people were unfit to rule the world. Ozai blamed his brother as having gotten to Zuko with his peaceful ways. After his son's death, Iroh had become peaceful and calm. Zuko declared his goal to join the Avatar and help defeat his father. Enraged, Ozai taunted his son with knowledge of his mother's whereabouts. Ozai revealed that his father had ordered him to kill Zuko, and he was prepared to until his mother had interfered. Ozai told Zuko that his mother had committed treason and was banished for it. Ozai then tried to kill his son with lightning, but failed as Zuko reversed the attack and escaped, leaving his father to rage alone. He had always mistreated Zuko, and that had led to the Fire Lord truly losing his son, having finally driven him away completely. Ozai focused on his plan to eradicate the Earth Kingdom. He declared himself the ruler of the world and crowned himself with the title Phoenix King, giving the title of Fire Lord to his daughter Azula. Ozai rode at the head of his fleet, proudly prepared to commit genocide. However, the Avatar appeared, and the final battle began. Ozai at this point had seemingly succumbed to madness and megalomania, declaring that the universe had delivered the Avatar to him as, quote, an act of providence, because his father and son had failed to do what he was about to do. The battle between the two was epic, and Ozai held victory for most until Aang unlocked the Avatar state and easily defeated Ozai. Instead of killing him, however, the Avatar used his abilities to remove Ozai's bending, rendering him a powerless and perpetually weary man. Ozai was imprisoned. His beloved daughter suffered a mental breakdown, finally succumbing to the pressures and responsibility Ozai had placed on her, and his hated son Zuko was made the new Fire Lord. Zuko visited his father in prison, where Ozai took the opportunity to taunt Zuko about the pressures and stresses of being Fire Lord. Ozai swore that Zuko would return for his aid. His prediction proved correct, and Zuko returned seeking advice from his father. Ozai, even after long imprisonment, enjoyed the fact that Zuko was groveling back to him, and still retained his same attitude and demeanor he had his entire life. When asked about his wife's location, Ozai offered nothing, forcing Zuko to find her himself. Zuko would find his mother Ursa, who would visit Ozai in jail and share final words with him, saying that she could finally see him for him. While he had tried so hard to be big, he had a small heart and no room for love for anyone, including himself. Ozai would spend the rest of his life in prison, and watching his legacy be tarnished, as years later it would become public knowledge that he had killed his father, Fire Lord Ozai. Ozai was easily angered, domineering, and had an insatiable lust for power. Iroh noted that Ozai had shown these traits from an early age. Ozai's nature came from a deeply rooted pathological psychology. Ozai lacked empathy. He never regretted, forgave, or changed his mind. Ozai believed morality was a sign of weakness. Peace and kindness were foolish concepts, and he hated those with moral principles. As such, Ozai rarely showed interest in others' feelings. Ozai's behavior was strongly influenced by his obsession with control. Ozai was willing to sacrifice anything, even his own family, to gain absolute power over the Fire Nation. Perhaps his father having favored Iroh caused this, or perhaps it stemmed from the jealousy of his brother, or lack of military accomplishment in his decorated war family that was feeding his personal insecurities and shortcomings. Despite Ozai being willing to sacrifice anything in pursuit of personal goals or those of the Fire Nation, Ozai believed that the Fire Lord's duty was to protect his people, a common belief held by dictators and megalomaniacs. I'm willing to kill all of you to maintain peace for my people, or the belief that only under my rule can true peace be obtained. Both are thoughts I'm sure Ozai had at some point in his life. This is, of course, conjecture on my part. Ozai reasoned that this was because the people were extensions of his divine will as Fire Lord. By attacking his people, an opponent was attacking him. Ozai sought nothing less than complete control over the entire world. In his younger years, Ozai showed some limited care and compassion for his family. Ozai and Iroh being close in their youth was a testament to this fact. Ozai and his children both agree that he was a good father in his earlier years as well. As time went on, however, Ozai's pride, anger, and lust for power slowly ruined his relationship with his family. Ozai believed that skill and accomplishment determined one's worth, a belief likely driven home by his preferential treatment in school and watching his father favor his more accomplished brother. This belief allowed Azula to gain Ozai's favor as she was naturally cunning and talented. As he began to openly show Azula favor, Ozai ignored or psychologically abused Zuko. He had no qualms about making Zuko's life miserable simply to get back at Ursa for her transgressions. After Ursa departed, Ozai continued to be psychologically abusive towards both his children and physically abusive to Zuko. Ozai never showed remorse for burning his son's face. In fact, he claimed it to be a lesson in respect meant to benefit his son. Ozai's attitude towards his son was built on his perceived inferiority and hatred of Ursa for her actions and words, both things an innocent child had no control over. On the other hand, Ozai raised his daughter to become his future heir. He expected the best from her at all times, placing a great amount of stress on Azula and forcing her to be a perfectionist. Ozai raised her in an environment where fear, power, and perfection were the only truths, and it would be that environment that led to Azula's total mental collapse. Despite his horrid and unforgiving way of parenting, Ozai showed on several occasions that he could show forgiveness when he wanted to. For example, War Minister Quinn and General Zhao both maintained positions despite their respective failures. Ozai seemed to value loyalty to his cause above competence or anything else. He held no tolerance for any who voiced opposition to his ideas or commands. Overall, Ozai seemed to see his subordinates as expendable and replaceable. By the time Ozai crowned himself the Phoenix King, he had begun to openly exhibit extreme megalomania, claiming to own the earth and to, quote, have all the power in the world. This, coupled with his belief in his divine right to rule, are very telling about Ozai. He claims such things, yet was not the heir to the throne and only attained it by killing his father, and because Iroh chose not to challenge him for his birthright. Even after being stripped of his bending and throne, Ozai retained his domineering personality. As Zuko sought advice from his father, we learned that Ozai believed good and evil and strength and weakness were meaningless concepts. Ozai believed that the only right and wrong were what he, or the Fire Lord, decided to do, due to the divine right to rule. All decisions he made were correct by virtue of it being his decisions. Indecisiveness and following moral principles were signs of weakness and traits he hated in his son, the only one who turned out good and in the end went on to become a beloved leader of the Fire Nation. So what can we, as current fathers, learn from Fire Lord Ozai? Acceptance. Fire Lord Ozai refused to accept what went against his ridiculous ideas and beliefs. He could not accept that his son wasn't as terrible as Ozai had initially believed. He refused to accept his position as prince, and couldn't accept that his dutiful wife had her own wants and desires. These examples all led Ozai on a path that landed him powerless and in prison. Had Ozai accepted his son, he would have seen Zuko's true potential and had a powerful and loyal ally. Had he accepted his position as prince, he wouldn't have had to kill his father. And had he accepted his wife's wants and given her freedom, he could have had a more stable and happy home life. As fathers, life is going to come at us, and there will be times that we end up with egg on our face. Acceptance could go a long way in helping to get over or get through life's challenges. Avoidance of favoritism. As spoken about in our analysis of Odin, favoritism can be extremely detrimental. Ozai clearly favored Azula, even after Zuko gained his firebending abilities. His favoritism ruined his relationship with both children and drove his daughter insane. As humans, it's natural to have favorites. We all do. A favorite book or a place to sit, a favorite song or a memory. It's only natural that one may also have a favorite child. There's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong is blatantly mistreating other children or applying undue pressure on your favorite child. Even if you do like Susie more than Steve, it's your duty as a parent to love and treat them both the same. Willingness to listen. Ozai rarely listened nor took advice. Any meeting or council seemed to be formality before he announced his decisions. Even when it came to his children, Ozai never listened and likely didn't care about their individual desires. He only cared in as much as it served him and his ambitions. We as fathers need to be ready to listen and take in information at all times. Our children practically tell us what they need, and if we stop, listen, and then move forward, we can supply them with all they need. Fire Lord Ozai was a selfish, abusive, narcissistic, power-hungry, genocidal madman. He thought about and cared only for what serviced him and aided in his plans. He surrounded himself with yes men and lackeys with no spine, because he could not accept being questioned, because that could mean he was wrong. And how could he, the divine ruler of the Fire Nation and rightful ruler of the world, ever be wrong? His arrogance, domineering, and demands for obedience and perfection destroyed his family and relationship with his children. Had Ozai been a better father, he would have had a united team of Zuko and Azula carrying out his wishes. With that, he most assuredly would have conquered the world. One of his children succumbed to insanity, while the other went on to rule and help usher peace, love, and unity to a broken world. Though that wasn't due to Ozai, but due to Iroh, Zuko's real daddy. If you know, you know. They like Piccolo and Gohan. Fire Lord Ozai failed as a leader, and he failed as a father. Thank you for watching this episode of Analyzing Fathers. Please like and subscribe and comment below any fathers, both real and fictional, you'd like to see me analyze in the future. Also, comment below any potential thing we can learn from Ozai that I may have missed. In the next episode, we'll be taking a look at the life and parenting of Daniel Plainview from the film There Will Be Blood.